To take a closer look at these issues raised by ASUU, I'm being joined by a lecturer from the Lagos Business School, Dr. Boongo Adi. You're welcome to News Across Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Now, Dr. Adi, what can you make of the demands by ASUU? In very recent times, I explored the problems with our educational system, the educational sector in Nigeria, in my column, the Business Day newspapers, which I called Bongonomics. And then I said our education, the ticking time bomb. And those are some of the issues I broached on the article that I wrote. I think the problem with ASUU, I can understand their frustration with the poor funding and the inability of the federal government to keep up to contracts and agreements. But at the same time, I don't think that the major problem with Nigerian education is funding. Funding is a big problem, no doubt about that. But in terms of the poor quality and the incompetence and the ineptitude that we've started to experience in our educational system, to the point where Nigerian products, the products of our universities, rank very low, below those from Kenya and other African countries, if you go with the recent World Economic Forum publication. Okay, that problem is not solely due to funding, but I think there are some insidious dimensions to that within universities. But I can understand them. In other places in the world, we've seen a gradual privatization of education or corporatization of education. I know when this took place in Japan some years, in about 2000 and 2001, when the government stopped to totally fund national universities and actually gave them the permission to begin to, to be self-sufficient in funding, in seeking for funds to execute the activity. So I think that is what is needed in the Nigerian educational system, because if we compare what is happening with our national universities, the public universities and the private universities, you will agree with me that yes, because of externality issues, because if education is privatized, then it will be underproduced. And that is the reason for the subsidization of education by government, and that is economic theory. But at the same time, when you look at it, the private system, the private sector seems to be better in terms of efficiency in the educational system than the public education. And I think that is a big problem, and it seems that is what ASUU hasn't quite looked at. They are behaving like, like an over-pampered child, always asking government for funds, but nobody asks for internally generated revenues. What happens internally generated revenues in the university system? Well, Dr. Adi, I need to come in here. You talked about the private system being better, but that will mean that not everyone can afford to go to a private university. It means paying more.
Please come again. I couldn't hear you very well.
Not everyone can afford to go to a private university. You said the private institutions are much better than the public ones, but you realize that people will need to have to pay more to attend those universities?
Of course. That is another thing, because let's go back to the whole argument about privatization, why privatization is preferred. Because state-owned enterprises have been known to, not to be so efficient. And that is the reason, the rationale for privatization of so many or corporatization of state-owned enterprises that we've witnessed all over the world. Okay? Nothing has changed, and we can apply that to the educational system as well. Education cannot be free, of course. I understand, I agree with everybody that the government hasn't quite played its expected role in the educational system. For instance, what we need is a total reform of the educational system. I don't think that everybody needs to go to the university. What has happened to our vocational education? So this reform is imperative in the educational sector. We need to revamp the vocational system of education. Some people need to have skills. Not everybody needs a liberal education as the university provides. And if that is allowed to happen, then it is possible for universities to charge according to what they provide. Right now, there is no competitiveness. There's no competition in the educational system.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boongo Adi, a lecturer from the Lagos Business School.